Ladies and gents, we are back with F1 news. And now, guys, we are on the eve of the American Grand Prix coming up this weekend. So we're going to get right into that on Friday. We're going to do a preview, what to expect. But today, we're going to go in and talk about three talking points, which I think is very, very important to bring up here. And especially for this first one here, let's just dive right into this. And I think, that this really concerns me here. We're talking about Mercedes. Now, okay, I'm recording this at the weekend. This comes out on a Monday. So guys, maybe there's an update, okay? I'm wondering why George Russell has not been signed yet. Now, we're going to get into it. So, by the time I've recorded this to when this goes out, maybe it's going to change. So, you'll have to forgive me if it does, but obviously I need time to record and edit and post up, etc. So, something doesn't sit right here in Brackley, lads. 6 races to go, 3 sprint race weekends on top of that. And yet one of the biggest teams in F1 history, the team that started dominating the hybrid era, has not confirmed their driver lineup for next year. Now, George Russell is at the top of that list. Now, let that sink in. Mercedes would have never have had Hamilton in this situation. He was their golden boy. They never would have Hamilton just sitting out there in the wings, maybe being snatched up by someone else. It would be all done and dusted. We're not talking about Haas here. We're not talking about Williams or Sauber here. We're talking about the Mercedes team. Mercedes team here. And the empire that rules the sport for almost close to a decade. And Toto Wolff, the man who runs it all, the guy who's got a huge percentage of stake, I think it's like 30%, I could be wrong on that, but he's got a 30% stake in the team. He hasn't signed Russell. Now look, I'm not even the biggest George Russell fan, okay? But I gotta give credit where it's due. This lad deserves the top seat. He deserves to be signed. And he puts it on pole. He can win a race for you. He's been the only guy in that team who seems to have the stomach to go toe-to-toe with Red Bull when Hamilton couldn't. Now maybe that's an exaggeration, maybe. But still no contract. Not a word. Nothing but polite smiles and PR talk. Meanwhile, Cadillac, who aren't even on the grid yet, have already signed up their 2 for next year, Bottas and Perez. They're not even on the grid yet. 2 solid experienced drivers, sure, they're ready to go. So what's Mercedes doing? What is Toto playing at?
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front, what a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Now let's just get right into it, lads. Let's just lay this out. Toto, he's got a very good driver. Now, I've always said about George Russell, he's definitely one of those guys who's a qualifier, not really a racer. Now, forgive me for anybody saying that, any George Russell fans out there, forgive me. I have to put it out there. This is the way it happens in racing. You do have guys who do better or who rise to the occasion in qualifying rather than the race. Now, George Russell, no two ways about it. He can deliver for you. He'll bring meat to the table for you when it comes to a race. But he just doesn't have that Senna Schumacher last little thing. If you want him to squeeze something special out of it for you, I just don't see him doing it. And, he's not out there clubbing. He's not out there causing drama. When he makes a mistake, he owns it, and I'm giving him credit here. I'm ticking the boxes here for him in green. So again, the question is, why haven't they signed him yet? Toto was even asked directly at the Singapore Grand Prix, where are you? Are you signing them? Is it close? Is it very close? Is it something else going on? And he said it's super close. That was before the Singapore Grand Prix here. And then George Russell puts it on pole, and he walks off into the sunset and takes the win. Now, okay, didn't walk off into the sunset exactly, but you know what I mean, guys. He had a flawless race. If that doesn't tell you to sign the guy up, if that doesn't get Toto Wolff over the finish line to get him to sign him, there's something else going on here, lads. Now, I did speak about this at a previous podcast only, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, about, why haven't they signed Russell? But this now really is, and I'm bringing it up again because this is further now. We're way down the rabbit hole with this. This is ringing off alarm bells in my head. The guy gets the pole, gets the win. If you had a bit of doubts, surely be to God, that would have given Toto Wolff that, okay, that's it, we're done. We're in. We're taking him. That's it. Right? This isn't a timing issue. This isn't a, we're waiting for the paperwork thing, all this garbage, okay? They could have the contract sewn up like that, right? In fact, I would imagine Toto Wolff is such a sharp guy that he's even got multiple contracts signed up already, ready to go, and all he's got to do is take it out of the envelope and say, George, there you go. Sign it there. It's all ready. Guaranteed. He doesn't have to go off and wait for this, total rubbish talk. There's something going on behind the curtain at Mercedes, lads. And to understand it, we got to take a step back from the cars for a second here, all right? Formula One, it's not just about racing. It's about politics, money, and influence. And, guys, we still call it a sport these days, and I always will. Always will. Every driver on that grid is a brand, though. Every contract, it's an investment deal, and every race seat, it's like a chess piece moved around on $1 billion board here. And you remember when Haas dumped Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen? Now hear me out with this one, lads. Okay. When it came to, you see this in Netflix. Now I know racing. I've been around it all my life, so I can read between the lines in a lot of things here, all right? Just from my experience and knowing the racing world. Think about this. I'm sure you can relate to this. Now, guys, let's say you're an employee and you work for a boss. Let's say you're a boss and you've got your employees, your staff. Now, imagine that your company is Haas. Now, imagine that you're the boss of the company. You've got your to hell with it. Let's just go with an everyday comparison. Imagine you're the marketing guy, the senior marketing guy in your company. You've got your boss, right? He knows you. You've been there with the company for, 10 years, okay, or whatever it is. But you're reliable. He can trust you. He knows that you deliver results. And you've got a huge amount of experience. What happened at Haas, Roman Grosjean and Magnussen, two extremely experienced drivers, they've been around a long, long time, and they got booted out of the team, the two of them, and they brought in two rookies. Now, when I say rookies, that doesn't mean that they're rookies and they've never really driven cars before. Of course, Mazepin and Mick Schumacher. But technically, they're Formula One rookies because it's their first year. And they boot the two lads out and bring in the boys. Now, you can even see this in the documentary, the Formula One documentary. You can see when, what was the guy's name again? Not Gene at Haas, but the other guy, the guy with the moustache and, oh my God, sorry guys, brain fart. The Haas boss. I always do this again. But he was going out looking for sponsorship. Sponsorship, investment. They needed the money. And you can see him in the Netflix Drive to Survive documentary. You can see he's sitting there with a German company. They're interested in sponsoring the Haas team. Now, as far as I remember, I think it was like 10 million or something like that, all right? Big money, right? Big money. And the German team, in a roundabout way, said, well, look, basically, if you had a German driver on board, we'd be very, very happy. In other words, you'll have my money if you have a German driver. Otherwise, F off out of here. That was the very, very polite way of saying, we want this. It's either take that guy, the German guy, Mick Schumacher, or we say goodbye. That is exactly what it was, lads. And what happened? They brought Mick Schumacher in. They got the sponsorship and they brought him in. Nikita Mazepin Well, he was just a Russian billionaire, his dad. So they literally just bought their way into the team. And there's nothing wrong with that, lads. There's nothing wrong with it, because at the end of the day, this is a business, and you've got to pay your way. If you've got to pay your way through, you've got to pay your way through. You're paying all the way up anyway until you get to Formula One. And if you've got to still get in there with money, well then, hey, of course you would. I would have done that. We didn't have the money, but I would have done it. Every other driver on this planet would have done the same thing. So you certainly are not judging or, oh, I can't believe they did that, right? Because what you're doing is hoping that, okay, I'm going to have to buy my way in, but hopefully after year one, maybe the team will turn around and actually start paying me, or get the results in and they'll start paying me, or they'll get into another team, Ferrari or whoever, and then they'll be paid when they're there. So these kind of conditions happen all the time in racing. So let's go back to the real world example. Imagine now, okay guys, look at the comparison. Imagine you're working for a boss, you're the senior marketing guy, and there's another, let's say, senior marketing person with you, or sort of a midway up level person, right? Two of you very experienced. You're the Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen of the business, okay? Your boss comes along, the Formula One team boss for Haas. The boss comes along and says, sorry guys, I gotta let you go. Now, then, what does your boss do? You're like, oh, is there someone else? Are you bringing in someone else to replace me? Yeah, I'm sorry, John. We have to replace you. But I've been here for 10 years. Well, why would you get rid of me? I've got the most experience, right? Sorry, John. And you're like, okay, who are you bringing in? Well, look, two guys that are junior marketing guys. They're just sort of looking for a junior. They're sort of apprentices, They just come from college. And you're like, huh? And it's not because the junior guys know more than you. No, you're the senior marketing guy who knows all of it. You're on the ball. You're Johnny on the ball. All right? And imagine them bringing them in. Now, you could understand to a degree if your boss turned around and said, look, John, we're keeping you, but we're going to get rid of Tim. Tim is like, the low to mid marketing guy. But at least you're keeping John because he's the experienced fella. Now that would make sense. So in this case with Haas, if they kept on one of the guys, Magnussen or Grosjean, keep the guy with experience, then bring in the Mick Schumacher or Nikita Mazepin, very understandable then, because you're getting the best of both worlds. Why am I talking about this, guys? Let's get back to Mercedes. Toto Wolff, in the ideal world, Toto Wolff should hold on to George Russell. Again, like I said, I'm not even a fan of the guy. But I'd be holding on to George Russell because he's got the experience. He's got the race wins under his belt. He's got the experience of knowing everybody in the team. And obviously, he must get on with everybody because, look, at the end of the day, sometimes it's better to just get rid of the guy who's just a complete a-hole. If he's a complete a-hole, and you know that you could bring in some other experienced guy who'll do the job anyway, well, then you just replace the a-hole and get someone else in. Now, look, if you're talking about like Ayrton Senna, now, Senna wasn't an a-hole to the people in the team, but imagine if you did have an Ayrton Senna in the team, complete a-hole, and yet he just didn't get on with everybody, but he was a genius behind the wheel, which Senna was. But let's just say if Senna even was like that, you'd forgive that because, look, the guy is unbelievable. He still gets the results. He gets the job done for you. But with George Russell, you could replace him. However, given what he has at the moment, given the chips on the table here, Toto Wolff is definitely in a very excellent position to keep hold on to George Russell and bring in then someone else. Why hasn't he signed the senior guy, George Russell? Why hasn't he done it? And is he waiting to see if he can get a better one? And in Formula One, the better one has a name. And maybe that name is Max Verstappen. Maybe that name is Max Verstappen. Now, don't roll your eyes. Don't think I'm going to go all conspiracy theory here and, Max Verstappen was the second gunman on the grassy knoll here. I'm not going this way. But let's be honest here. This is how the sport works. Verstappen has publicly said multiple times that he's not 100% happy with Red Bull. And the team has been chaotic. Now, Christian Horner scandal rocked the paddock. There's tension, obviously. There's politics. Okay, Toto Wolff knew this. Now, Christian Horner, he's obviously gone. So maybe that gives them space to just relax now, a bit of breathing room. And if Verstappen ever leaves Red Bull, there's only one seat I think he'd consider. And I would think it would be Mercedes. And I think Toto Wolff would wrap him up in cotton wool. And I think that's why George Russell's contract is sitting there unsigned. Now, yes, Verstappen's got a contract with Red Bull. But look what happened with Christian Horner. You can guarantee that Christian Horner's contract didn't start off at the start of this year and said, okay, Christian, we're going to bring you up to halfway through the year and we're going to review everything. No. There was always a way out of the contract. Guys, there's a way out of everybody's contract. There's a way out of everybody's contract. And believe me, if they can get rid of Christian Horner, Max Verstappen can certainly get out of his one too. This is leverage. If Verstappen stays, Russell signs, maybe for a smaller paycheck. I don't think Toto Wolff would be like that though, I'll be honest. If Verstappen leaves, Toto's got a golden ticket waiting. It's brutal. It's smart to a degree. Now, look at Russell's situation. He just delivered a win in Singapore. He carried Mercedes through a bit of a dark age here. And he's the guy who's been in every debrief, every test, every long night. You know, he's given a lot to the team. You gotta give him some credit here. And what does he get in return? A vague answer on live TV. We're super close. Super close? Really? Imagine that you're the guy who's helping to keep the lights on and your boss is out there flirting with someone else. Toto isn't dumb here, lads, alright? The guy's a very, very sharp businessman. And that's what you do need as well in Formula 1. Now, he's one of the sharpest operators in the sport. You know, not just in Formula 1, like in a lot of sports. If he was a football manager, he'd be on the ball, this guy, man. You know, he's sort of a part team principal, part investor, part stockbroker. And right now, you know, he's juggling the future of Mercedes and how to stay relevant, especially with the new regulations coming up in 2026. The future of the driver market, Verstappen, Antonelli, maybe even Leclerc. Maybe, if Ferrari implode again. The internal power balance, lads, is keeping sponsors happy while maintaining control. The man's just not running a race team. He's running a multinational corporation with ego strapped of carbon fiber, and that's the problem as well. George Russell's not just fighting other drivers, he's fighting perception, he's fighting politics, and that's a fight you can't win with the steering wheel. What's the lesson here, lads? What is Toto Wolff doing? Why is he stalling? Why is he stalling? Is he waiting for that golden phone call? The golden handshake? The golden sign on the line from Verstappen? Is that what we're waiting for here? Because it looks like it to me. It looks like it. And my heart does go out to him, you know. Like Toto Wolff, he's not a villain here, all right? You know, he's not a bad guy. He's doing what every Formula 1 team boss needs to do, you know. Now, believe me, you know, if I was in the team and I was in this situation, believe me, I wouldn't be speaking like this. But I'd know it. I'd know it. And, you know, it's a cold world, lads. You know, George Russell hasn't done everything right. Hasn't done everything wrong either. He's fast, consistent, politically clean, and yet still waiting. Sometimes the only thing that matters is timing. And here we are, 6 races, 3 sprints, a championship fight that's already quite electric, and a silent war brewing inside Mercedes. Now, Toto's holding the cards, Russell holding his breath, and the rest of the paddock's kind of watching, I think with a bit of popcorn, wondering, what in God's name? Like, they're probably even laughing, going, what is he up to? You know? And because when the Mercedes seat opens, really opens, you know, a lot of drivers start dreaming again. And somewhere deep down, Toto Wolff, I've got to say, he's probably smiling right now because that's exactly how he likes it. Okay, lads, I think, did I say 3 talking points? No, actually, I've got 2 today. Apologies, lads. The next one. So, I've done some research on psychology here. We've got 6 races, included 3 sprint races. 3 different men with 3 different mentalities. I've actually looked at psychology facts, what these drivers will be going through here, because 3 drivers, 3 completely different mindsets here, and I think it's fascinating, guys. And one simple truth, not one of these guys can afford to blink. Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris. And because at this point, it's not about really who's got the fastest car. It'll get to a stage, I mean, it still is, but it's going to get to a stage here where it's about who can handle their brain, their patience, their emotion, because that's the battle people forget sometimes in Formula 1. You know, everyone talks about setup, aerodynamics, tire wear, but none of that matters if your mind cracks under pressure here. And this is where, like, you'll see the difference between the driver and the racer. And right now, we've got 3 definitely different, 3 psychological beasts. Verstappen, kind of the wounded animal, and we'll get into this. Norris, the kind of the cop between patience and fury, and then Piastri, the cold-blooded calculator with a poker face. This isn't just a title fight. This is a study in human behavior, lads. They say in psychology that, you know, pressure, it can be a funny thing. They say that you don't always feel it until you suddenly do. Well, what the hell does that even mean, right? Like, psychologists will tell you that stress doesn't show up when you expect it to. And it hits you when you think you're fine. When your brain starts to relax, that's when the cracks appear. Now, that's why Verstappen's psychology here, it's nothing to lose. You know, Verstappen has pressure, yes, but it's not the kind that he's used to. He's not protecting a lead anymore. He's chasing one. And, you know, and that triggers a completely different chemical response, according to psychologists again, guys, all right? So you get a flood of adrenaline, cortisol, and the body's fight or flight hormone cocktail here that kind of kicks in. And some drivers thrive on it. Others, they can implode. They can crack, buckle. And Max is always, he's a fighter. The guy's a goddamn fighter. And when you fight with nothing left to lose, you stop thinking about damage limitation. You start thinking about destruction. And that's dangerous for him, possibly, for him, for the others, for everyone. Let's look at them in a psychological way. Let's look at Max. So, this is the guy who's built his identity, I think, on dominance. Like, the guy just doesn't want to win. He needs to destroy. And when psychologists talk about, it's called identity-linked performance. And Verstappen, they say that, well, it basically puts it down to, he's the textbook example of this. And he's not just racing for points, he's racing for the self-image. He's wired to believe that second place is failure. And that's why this stretch of the season could be hell for him. He's not used to chasing. He's not used to doubt. And when somebody whose identity is built on invincibility starts to feel vulnerable, they can start making uncharacteristic mistakes. Now, he'll come into America with one thing in mind. Attack. Not because he wants to. Not because he wants to. But because he has no other gear. It's all or nothing for him now. And that takes a lot of the pressure off him. Here's the twist. Biologically, the all or nothing starts, floods your system with cortisol, that sharpens you in bursts, but over time, it can make you reckless. And Verstappen can make mistakes, and you start making half-second decisions out of emotion, not strategy. I mean, we've seen him literally just thump into guys just because he was angry. I mean, what? Like, this is Verstappen's war now. Now, Lando's is fascinating, I think. He's the sandwich right between the hunter and the hunted. And this is a psychological nightmare, they say, because he's close enough to dream about the title, but not close enough to relax. He has to attack. He can't overdo it. He has to defend, but can't play safe either. So it's what psychologists call a cognitive conflict loop. And the brain's stuck between 2 messages. Don't screw this up, or Go for it, man. What are you doing? And those two thoughts, they can't really coexist peacefully, they say. Now, that's where self-sabotage can happen. That's when the guy breaks 2 meters too late, and that's when you clip a curb and lose a tenth that costs you pole. Lando's in that danger zone. He's confident, yeah, absolutely, but he's not calm. And calmness, that's the difference between confidence and arrogance. Like, you can see it a bit in his interviews. The smile is there, but the eyes are just a little wide for my liking. He's trying to play the chill guy, but underneath, you can be sure of it, his heart rate is flat out, man. Now, the best driver in history, Senna. Now, he knew how to embrace the two. There's no question. Schumacher, same thing. Fangio, same thing. And a lot of others. You know, they converted nerves. They converted the nerves into complete focus. Lando, it feels like he's still learning how to do this. With their Senna and Schumacher, Fangio, they just have it. They had it. It's done. It's in their DNA. It's in their system. And the psychology term for Lando is cognitive reframing, taking anxiety and turning it into alertness. And if he nails that in the next 2 races, he's not just a contender, he can be the next world champion. Now then there's Oscar. Now I gotta admit, this definitely fascinates me the most out of all 3 of them. Because what we saw at Baku was a man who fell asleep at the wheel. Okay? We saw him fall asleep at the wheel. At Baku, just before the race started off in Baku, he was 31 points ahead. Now, that is a race win plus 6 points. So he could have crashed out, which he did, but he knew that he'd still be in the lead of the championship. So he relaxed. He let go. He let go. He fell asleep at the steering wheel. And that's exactly, it wasn't a pressure as like, oh my God, I could lose this championship. No, if that was the case, that would have been a scenario where, you know, he would be 2 or 3 points between himself and Lando, and all of a sudden he just started to feel this pressure of the championship at Baku. That was not the case. It was the complete opposite. So a lot of the times, victory can defeat us. Victory can get us. Winning all the time doesn't mean that you're winning. Maybe you could do better. You know, maybe you're a boss at your own business, and yeah, business is flying through the door, and you're under that false sense of illusion that you're winning. What if you could do better? What if you could be better than what you're doing? But again, you're so distracted that you're making money that you think automatically, oh, I'm a winner, man. You know, what if you do go on that racing track and you put it on pole? But what if you could have gone quicker? What if you could have been quicker? Piastri, he's still leading the championship, and he's got a cushion. He's got a cushion. Now, when you start driving not to lose, your brain enters a protective mode, and you can overthink. You start backing off just maybe a little, 1%, 2%. Does everybody remember when Senna was leading in Monaco that time? This is back in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. Sorry, forgive me if I got it wrong. He was way off in the lead, absolutely obliterating the entire pack. And he was told to slow down. You don't need to be going this quick. And what does Senna do? He lets off the gas, takes it a little bit more easy, and what does he do? He crashes. He crashes. He didn't crash. Now, let's repeat this. He did not crash because he was going so fast. He crashed because he slowed down. That meant he laid off. He took himself out of his rhythm, his momentum. Senna was in a rhythm. He was in a dance, man. So, you understand it. Of course you understand it. You know, I think any team boss in the world would have done the same thing. Hey, Senna, easy, man. You're all good here. You're all good. You do not need to be pushing this hard. And Senna did make the mistake. So, Piastri at Baku, you know, he had a disaster race. He just lost his dance. He lost his mental restraint. He needs to keep doing what he's worked all season. Just steady podiums, zero drama, and zero ego. But one aggressive move from Verstappen, one lunge from Norris, and suddenly he could be out. He's the calmest man in the paddock, you would think, but he's sitting on a psychological minefield. Let's zoom out, lads. We've got 3 drivers, 6 races, and 3 sprints. 9 rounds of total psychological warfare. And Austin's coming up, Circuit of the Americas. It's a track that tests rhythm, bravery, and adaptability. Turn 1 can be kind of chaotic. And, you know, you're braking uphill, you're going blind into a corner, and it opens up like an open wound. And, you know, that's the perfect metaphor for where all these 3 guys are right now. They're going uphill, blind, each one thinking that they can see the daylight, but none of them are totally sure what's on the other side. And here's where the psychology deepens. Verstappen will go in full attack mode, dopamine and adrenaline-fueled aggression, and that's what we love to see. Norris will second-guess every move, probably, trapped between caution and ambition. And then you've got most fascinating one. Piastri will try and keep emotion out of it. A stoic defense, maybe, against chaos. And that's where the sports meet science, man, because the brain doesn't care who's leading. It just cares how much fear and reward are at play. What happens after all the pressure collides? Let's say Verstappen does dive into turn 12 on Norris. Full send. I hate that term. They said that, full send. But anyway, no backup plan. That's the aggression of desperation for Verstappen. Now, you could argue me that one, but that's what psychologists call risk compensation. The brain convincing you that a high-risk move is worth it because your back's against the wall. Now, understandable too, doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just, that's what it is. Meanwhile, Piastri, watching this unfold, has to override mirror neurons and, you know, the instinctive reaction your brain has when you see danger in front of you. That's what makes the drivers flinch or hesitate. The great ones, they've trained themselves not to flinch. And this is why these last 6 races are not just about points. They're about emotional control. Now, whoever manages that best, I personally think, will be champion. Not necessarily the fastest. Now, you could argue me on that one, but whether it's this round coming, I genuinely do believe it's coming from here on in. But somebody's got to keep their cool. So, here's where we stand, lads. You've got Verstappen, nothing to lose. Norris, everything to lose and everything to gain. And Oscar Piastri, everything to protect. This isn't about horsepower anymore. This is about headspace. This is popcorn time for us. There is no 2 ways about it. And, lads, this, you know, your brain's screaming for mercy. You're diving into corners that could end your season, literally end your season. And that's when Formula 1 becomes the purest test of what it means to be human. Get out the popcorn, lads. We'll see you on Friday.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh.